Good evening, everyone. I'd like to first thank you for coming. My name is Dale Riem. I'm the Township Manager. And this evening is a open house sponsored by the Public Services Commission to give an explanation regarding the November 3rd proposal for the water main and road repair project. Next to me here is Chairman Bill Kostick of the DPS Commission, as well as the other commissioners and elected officials in the audience tonight. But I'd like to read a simple statement. You received a flyer mailing 2 weeks ago, and this sums up what this whole election is about. And on November 3rd, the voters of Grosse-Ile will be asked to consider a ballot proposal that calls for the sale of $18.8 million in general obligation bonds to repair and make safety improvements to almost all of the island's primary and secondary collector roads and replace several sections of aged and outdated water mains. And the plan is the product of 4+ years of examination of alternatives. So we welcome questions throughout this discussion this evening. And I know myself, Chairman Kostick, we've heard a lot of difference. So I want to pass the mic to Mr. Kostick. And thank you.
And I go. Can everybody hear me? And I may get up and walk around.
Okay.
What?
We have 4 elected officials. Township business will not be discussed among us.
Okay. Okay, very good. Well, thanks for being here. And thanks to everybody for being here. We had hoped for a larger crowd. I even thought maybe we'd have to go to the high school auditorium or something. But at any rate, a couple of points I want to make to begin with. You have a DPS commission. Some of you have been to the commission before. And we're 7 members. We're citizens just like everybody else. And we meet the second Tuesday of every month here in this room. And for over 4 years, as Dale mentioned, we've been looking at the water system, longer actually, but the last 4 years, and our roads. And every year, going back as long as I've been around on the commission, annually, the DPS commission, in April, when the roads are at their worst, we get in a van or in a caravan of cars, and we drive all the roads in the community to look at what we're going to do in the coming year with the little bit of resources we had. And Jack Delphi was a member of that commission when we used to do that. And when we get to the water portion, I will tell you that in 2010, and every 10 years you're supposed to have a so-called water reliability study performed by your engineers. And they essentially do pressure tests between hydrants and try to look for deficiencies. And the last one was done in 2010, and what you see, what we'll talk about later, is the product of some of that analysis. So with that, I also want to indicate we tried to be very open and transparent about this. In the brochure that was some 5,000 were mailed to every property owner. In blue here in the bottom, and you all saw this, we noted that tonight this meeting was a public information meeting. Can you hear me? We're okay? And then also at our October 13th meeting, which is our regular DPS Commission meeting, we will also discuss this issue. In fact, we've discussed this issue numerous times, and a couple of commissioners are here. Phil Kennedy, why don't you just raise your hand, Phil? Thanks for being here. And Jim Budney and Ted Van Oz. And of course, we have a couple of trustees. Our supervisor, Brian Loftus, and I saw Tom Malvesto.
To the right.
Hiding over there in the corner. So thank you all for being here. So let me explain what we're proposing to do. And the best way to describe this is to just talk about the colors. The first thing I want to say is every year we have a 4/10 of a mil that's good till the year 2020. It's for maintenance activities. So we spend that, we get, last year it was about $220,000. Well, we spend about $120,000 of that between our dust control, supplementing roadside mowing and tree removal, and supplementing our snow removal program. The other $100,000 or $120,000, however it ends up every year, we go in the neighborhoods and we patch holes. If you have children in the high school, we do patching almost every year on Gray's Drive by the high school. Some of the concrete roads especially, where we have slabs that are deteriorating, we go in the neighborhoods. This program is not about neighborhood streets. The focus of this program is all the major secondary roads, the primary roads that we all travel on the island. And almost every primary road is covered. So I'll start with the one road that needs to be reconstructed is Church Road. Church Road shows up here in yellow. So from East River to the bridge, basically, Thoroughfare Street, the canal, not all the way to Meridian. We hope to widen it to 22 feet. In some spots, it's just 18 feet wide. We're going to do extensive drainage improvements if this is approved. And if anybody's watching, our plan is to not remove any trees. That was an issue with some of the residents before. There may be one tree about midway that may be a problem. It's not a huge tree, but at any rate, that's our goal. And the question was asked earlier. We went to the county when we submitted this plan to them and asked, in concept, will you approve it? And we have a letter in writing that says, in concept, they will approve it. We'll talk about the county a little later. And to set the stage, I guess everybody should know, as a little primer on this, if you're a township in Michigan, you do not own any roads. Cities and villages own roads and get gas tax receipts for maintenance of those roads. If you're a township, all the roads are owned by the county wherever you reside. So all of our roads are owned by Wayne County, but we'll get back to Wayne County in a minute. So the one road to be reconstructed is Church Road. And then from a thoroughfare on Church to Meridian, where there's a number of stately, beautiful, historic trees with trunks that are bigger than this, all we're going to do is resurface there. We're going to mill it and resurface. When I say mill, we're going to essentially plane it down. You've seen what's going out here at Jefferson right now. That's a milling operation. They take down the asphalt pavement 3 to 4 inches, and then they replace it. So that's what we're talking about there, because there, it's very delicate. We do not want to kill those trees. So that's what's going on at Church. All the roads shown in green, and they're primarily East River, Meridian, and West River, 3 miles of each of those, and Ferry Road. These roads would be resurfaced, similar to what's going on Jefferson. Again, we would come in and mill the existing asphalt, make some base repairs where it's necessary. There's some spots where the pavement's just really shot. Those would be dug up a little deeper than the 3-inch or 4-inch mill, and then repaired, and then you'd resurface over it. And that would give you a 20-year life on those roads. And all the roads shown in red, for now, all the primary roads, and as you can see, it goes from the north side of the island to the south, would be chip sealed. Now, we chip sealed about 3 miles of roads this year, right out in front of the Township Hall on Groves, some on South Hill, 2 sections of East River and Horse Mill. It was an experiment to see how it would look and feel. We went to Monroe, our commission, we went to Monroe County, and our commission as a whole did. We saw their equipment, we saw their procedures, we had a lecture about it, we went out and looked at the roads. I've been in Lenawee County and in Midland County and looked at it. What we learned from the couple of contractors that do this is every county in Michigan does chip seal except Wayne County. Now, we had hoped to do the chip seal last year. We didn't get approval from the county for the specifications, which came from Michigan Department of Transportation. And so by the time we got approval, it was already July. We tried to line up a contractor, and it was too late. The idea is you have to have warm weather. It has to be warm at night. If it gets in the below 60 degrees at night, the first day that you put the chip seal down, it doesn't adhere as well. So at any rate, this time of year, for example, well, the weather's been great. They could be chip sealing, but starting tomorrow, probably they couldn't chip seal anymore. Now, what's chip seal? Chip seal is they spray the road with asphalt, sticky emulsion, spread a load of small pea stones or stones that are specifically cut. They're actually not round, they're actually like a sliver. And then they roll it in. We did 2 applications called a double chip seal, and then we covered it with what was called a fog seal. What does it do? It doesn't have any structural value, but what it does do is it allows you to fill all the cracks and voids in the roads. So, you know, when you see projects where they crack seal roads, so-called, they put that black tar in the cracks and the joints. The chip seal is the same thing. It fills all the voids up. So what it does do is it extends the life of your pavement. So in this program, we proposed to chip seal twice, in the second and the fourth year. A lot of counties, like Monroe County, they repeat it on roads every 3 or 4 years. We will have to spend our money. The more you do, the more length and longevity it adds to the surface of the roads. So that's what the chip seal is about. So we'll talk about chip seal if there's any further questions on that. So the red shows all the roads that are chip sealed. Some 12 miles plus. Now I would add this. We went to the county and asked the county, and you can jump in if you want, Dale. When we first came up with our plan, this was a year ago, we gave them a letter from our commission and said, here's our plan, will you approve it? And we'd asked them for $2 million plus of cooperation. Meridian Road and East River are two of the roads, of the 3 roads on the island, the other one's Grosse Ile Parkway, that are eligible for so-called federal grant money. You know, each state gets from the federal highway tax dollars that you all pay, that I pay, each state gets an allocation of money from the federal government, and those are made in forms of grants, 80% grants for what's called the federal aid system, like Jefferson and Fort Street are on the federal aid system. On our island, Meridian, East River, and Parkway are eligible. Well, the county has a needs list, and on the roads, Meridian was showing up in 2013 as 76th on their needs list. So 2013, Meridian resurfacing from Grosse Ile Parkway to the church showed up as 76th on their needs list. In 2014, we dropped to 74th. Now they do 14 miles a year. These are about mile segments on their needs list. There's 200 projects on their needs list. So we're thinking, well, at least we're moving in the right direction. So we asked the county, if we were to come up with a local 20% share, could we move East River and Meridian forward? Well, we all know the county has financial woes. They also are comparing us with what's going on in Brownstown or Canton Township or Livonia, where you got 7 Mile or Cherry Hill or Ford Road, Jefferson, or out in the Grosse Points, Mack Avenue, or whatever the jurisdiction they have for some of these other roads that are high volume traffic roads, high accident roads. Well, we don't have the volume, we don't have the accidents, and based on those factors, we're not high on their needs list. And I suppose, in all honesty, if you ran the county, you probably would make decisions based on greatest need as well. Well, we were looking forward to 2015. Well, we went into the 80s. We went the other way. Instead of dropping on the needs list, we went the other way. We have a letter, if anybody wants to see it at some point, from the county saying, for the foreseeable future, we will not be able to resurface any roads on the island. They'll fix potholes, and they've been good about that. But that's the financial situation there. So that's roads for a minute, and then I'm going to go talk about water for a minute. Oh, what happened to my water map? All right. Well, everybody's got a copy of the brochure, right? I thought this was water. That's okay, Dale. And this bottom map here in blue, does everybody have a copy of the, we had the handouts here. Dale, this gentleman needs a handout.
What was on the screen as well?
Oh, it's on the screen too. All right, so we'll refer to the screen. The water mains that are depicted here are basically, for the most part, 90% of the improvements for water main are to upgrade 60-year-old water mains that are 6-inch to 12-inch mains. A couple of very significant sections. The fire chief came to our commission 2 years ago, and the section on East River and the section on West River would complete the circulatory system of the water mains around the perimeter of the island. And the section of Meridian we would upgrade from an old 8-inch main that we have a number of water main breaks on to a 12-inch main. Out on the north end, those are all upgrades, and then it includes some water main replacement on Hickory Island and a small section over by Meridian and Grow, near where we are today. Just to give you an example, one of the problems with these water mains, and not everybody can see this. If I move this, I'm going to get all dirty.
I'll do it.
But no, you don't have to move it. But this is a little bit of tuberculation buildup on the inside of the pipe. Now, we've seen some where an 8-inch main is reduced to 4 inches because of that mineral buildup on the inside of the pipe. This, by the way, isn't hazardous or anything. It just builds up, and most water mains that are aged are going to show this kind of result. Thanks, Dale. So anyway, there's a need for the water improvements. Now, one thing we could do, when we've delayed any of these improvements for a few years now, because you can always sell what's called a revenue bond. It doesn't go to the voters. It's paid for by revenues. But we all know, and I know, like you know, our water and sewer rates are already high enough. And it's not tax deductible. Our thinking on the water was we don't want to go and resurface roads ahead of improving the water main. You've seen that happen someplace before. I mean, you can always go and resurface and then have a water main break. Then you'll have to go and dig up the new road and repair the break. These water main are not right under the road, but if we try to build the water main later, you're going to destroy some of the new pavement. So our commission talked about this, and we tie-barred the two together. We're not going to fix the roads. That was our thought, in the best interest of extending the dollars in our community without fixing the water main. So I think that's a quick summary of what our plan is. If I've missed something, please, and then Dale and I will be here to try to answer any questions. Oh, you want to talk a little finance? Oh, I missed the most important thing, I guess.
One of the things I wanted to There we go. One of the things I wanted to expand on is Chairman Kostick and the Public Service Commission worked in concert with Wayne County and made sure that they would support this project. So at the end, we would have a deliverable and no surprises. Church Road, for instance, the time that I've been here, has been evaluated 4 different times, and there were 4 administrations. And we have gone from no variation whatsoever to a minor modification, back to Maine federal standards, and we have their commitment to a minor modification, which will save the trees, and that's the type of situation that we have. As far as the county maintenance goes, we were surprised last week. West River Road South, they came and crack sealed. It was a surprise to us. We did not know. We do have a good relationship with the field office. They at one time had 30-plus employees. They're now down to 6. So it is a very difficult situation. But one thing I wanted to share is the question was asking me several times. Well, we're looking at funding this project. We're looking at going into doing this program. Isn't this really the county's responsibility? And what's going to happen at the state level when the money comes? Okay, if the money comes, we don't know. But I guess Chairman Kostick, if you want to confirm the commission's thoughts and feelings on that, and available, how would we proceed?
Well, if the legislature ever does anything with roads, I can only give you a hypothetical answer. We do know that county revenues 10 years ago for roads from the state, from the gas tax and vehicle registration fees, was in the range of $64 million a year. That supports their whole road operation. We do know that it's down to about $55 million a year. So that's about a 20% cut in their revenues from the state to Wayne County for road maintenance and reconstruction. I know that they've laid in the hundreds of people off in their road division. We know they've deferred purchasing snow plows and trucks and 10-yard dumps and backhoes and street sweepers and all the equipment a road agency needs. And I've been in the road business a long time. I happen to live on Grosse Ile now, but in my experience of some 40 years, what I think is going to happen if the legislature does something, and let's say Wayne County would mysteriously all of a sudden be eligible for a 50% increase in their revenues, say it'll go up $30 million. I would guess any road commission is going to take a third of that and put it into restoring the manpower and equipment that they've deferred. That's my belief. We don't know the answer to that. So then maybe 20 million would get into construction. And whether they would have federal money to try to match or just say, okay, now we can do $20 million a year. If you look at what's going on in Wayne County and you drive like Jefferson here or Jefferson by Pennsylvania, or if you drive Sibley Road, which was supposed to be addressed this year but was delayed till next year by the county, the section of Sibley from Allen to the freeway, which is a terrible section of road, and many others. I mean, Jefferson now all the way out to the Monroe County line is starting to deteriorate pretty badly. And these are the roads I drive. My opinion would be is we might be able to get some money, but it's certainly not going to address our needs. And we're going to still be left with a lot of bad roads. And in the best of all worlds, if we're split on a population basis, we wouldn't even get $500,000. I mean, if they divvied it out on a per capita basis of Wayne County residents, we're 10,000 people out of 2 million people that they're responsible for. So percentage-wise, we'd hardly get anything. So my guess is we would ask, but my feeling is we're not going to get much. Now, I would also say this, even though they've said no to us, if this gets approved, every year I think we got to go back to them. Our intent is to go back and say, look, we're fixing your roads. And the one reply, and some of the elected officials can address this, I'm not here to bash Wayne County. We're not going to talk about the jail or some of the other things. But one thing they throw in our face all the time is the cost to maintain the bridge. They always throw that in our face. Yeah, you're not spending any money on Grosse Ile, we say to them. They say, yeah, we're spending $1 million to operate your bridge a year. So, but that's been their responsibility. I mean, how many drawbridges do they have? Just 2 or 3 in the county.
Well, they have one working.
They have one working. So anyway, that's a little bit, I don't know if I answered. That wasn't a question, was it? So,
No.
I mean, I'm expressing, our commission, we've discussed this, we meet monthly, 12 times a year, and probably 9 times 4 years, at least 36 times at our meetings, which are televised, we've talked about this and hassled over it and had study sessions on it. And that Saturday in April where we spend a half day driving the roads and then coming back and trying to put a road program together. I mean, we spent a lot of time on it, right, Phil?
Yeah. A couple other things, and then we can do questions and answers. I think people are interested. You touched on this, but why water and roads? Well, the simple answer is, well, it's a need for both. We saw the water main, that's a safety issue, and the last thing we want to do is fix a road and have a broken water main underneath it. So these plans, in essence, dovetail with each other. And then the cost, okay? A home with a cash value of $250,000, the average annual cost is $265 a year. A home with a $300,000 cash value is $318. $400,000 cash value, $424. A $500,000 cash value home, $530 annually. So, and you can continue the math from there if you wish.
So we know it's not cheap and it's expensive. So we're going to ask.
Yeah.
I'll just take it from
Yeah. They want
Jim, you wanted to say something?
Well, I just want, you could expound on that. I've had a couple of people come to me and ask me about that, and they're confused. Explain to them that it's not going to be a flat rate across the amortization of that it will. Explain that it'll fluctuate.
All right.
Come up on that. It's because it puts here, it says $1.12 per thousand in 2016, but an average of $2.12.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, the question was, that number was a flat number. Is the actual millage rate each year going to be flat, or does that fluctuate? The answer is yes, it fluctuates. The first year, it's obviously less because we borrow less, and I believe the actuarial table, the highest will be at 2.5, slightly above the average of 2.2. Does that answer your questions?
Well, I can.
What's that come to in real dollars?
Well, the real dollars, what he recited was the the average annual was 2.12 mils, and that's the figures that Dale just gave you. So that, if I recall, if you have a home worth $300,000, let's say, it was $300 and some dollars, $340. We know it's expensive. $318. But the first year, we're going to sell the bonds in a series of 2 series, if it's approved. 14 million initially, and then 4.5 million or 4.8 million 2 years later. If you sell bonds in the municipal market, you've got to have the money obligated within a 3-year period, or you violate the federal income tax so-called arbitrage regulations. So that's what our plan is right now. So to be very clear on this, the first year, if this was approved and we sold the bonds next April, let's say, then what it would cost you that year is mostly interest payments only, and it would be the 1 mil, basically a little over 1 mil. The second year it would rise to the 2.12 mils. And then when we sold, and it would stay at that level until we sold the next series in 2017, and it would then jump in 2018 to the 2.5, and it would stay there for a few years and then come back to the 2.12, someplace in between them. The maximum amount would be the 2.5. It's 2.5 mils. I would also add that Riverview in 2012 passed a 3 mil levy for 10 years for roads. And there are cases of this all over the state. Last November, many cities, there were, if I remember the statistics right, and I have it back in my office, but there were 74 communities, whether they were townships, cities, or villages, that had millage or bond proposals on the ballot. 74 last November of 2014. And over 60 of them passed. Some I'm familiar with. Royal Oak passed 2.5 mils. Farmington Hills passed 2 mils for roads. Southfield sold a $99 million bond issue. Just this past May, Ferndale approved a $45 million bond issue to be spread over 10 years for roads and parks. $45 million. So what's happening, in my view, after we've studied this, is communities are stepping up because of the frustration. Help's not coming from Lansing in a significant way. I mean, that's our conclusion. Does that answer your question?
Mostly.
Okay.
I guess I'd want to know the number that's the most expensive that I'd pay.
Well, the number is this and figure it out.
We can look his value.
Well, we could do that, and what we could do is we could put it on did anybody ever watch Channel 12? Sometimes it's a lot of fun to watch Channel 12.
So we would.
No, I haven't watched it in a while, but yes, sir.
I have 2 questions.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot.
As you can see, I'm not only young now. This thing is projected to be between 2016 and 2019.
Yes.
When are we expected to drive on this improved roads over here? How many years? The next year? 2016? 17?
That's a great question. And I'll tell you what,
Do I live long enough to drive on it? I mean,
I hope so.
I hope so.
I hope so too, but
Well, let me tell you the plan. It was in our original report. and it's in this document, actually. If you look at the years that, right over here, these are the years we hope to pave the roads. It's on page 3.
Page 3.
So it's a great question for this standpoint. And if this is approved this November, we've got to get these projects engineered and out to bid next spring. Well, what we propose to do next year is to reconstruct Church Road and then resurface 3 miles of Meridian from Grosse Hill Parkway to Horse Mill. Now, the resurfacing is pretty easy in terms of engineering drawings. Church Road is going to be a challenge because we've already know from the county they have something called the permit office. I think some people are familiar with the permit office. And we don't have any good stories to tell about the delays at the permit office. Now, the county's told us they won't charge us anything for the permit reviews. Okay, they're their roads. Good deal.
The problem on Church Road, my daughter lives on Church Road.
Yep.
And there is a man, I don't know what that is. It's a big steel thing in the backyard, in the front yard, I should say. And this thing sunk into the ground about a foot, 12 inches. There are 2 small children over there. I came over here, Mr. Barry, what was his name?
Barry Sedlak?
Barry Sedlak. I talked to him many times. He called Wayne County, and they come over there. They filled it up with gravel because my grandchildren will trip and fall on it. They never done nothing in the sewer directly in front of it, in the ditch, I should say. There is a drain that is permanently plugged. Every single ditch there.
Well, those will all be fixed.
They will all be fixed.
But we have to get permits from the county.
I live on Ferry Road. I'm one of the lucky ones to be surfaced, I see, here in this thing.
Yeah.
Now, you said that Church Road was being widened by 22 feet, and Church Road is, Ferry Road is what? 12 feet? I mean, that thing, you couldn't even drive a bicycle on it.
Ferry Road is 20 feet.
20?
And here's the problem. Originally, we were going to try to widen Church Road to 24 feet, and originally we were going to widen Ferry to 24 feet. When we went to the county and asked for the $2 million, and they said no, we had to reduce what we were going to do to stay within, we thought we were stretching things to go to the $18 million figure.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to end up at $20 million.
Yeah.
So we cut back and said, well, we're going to resurface Ferry, I'm sorry. We were going to, 2 years ago, we were going to chip seal Ferry. But last year it deteriorated so much that we can't do it. You can't have big chunks of pavement missing and try to chip seal.
If you see what a pomegranate looks like after you peel the skin, that's what.
So, in essence,
I drive over there about 3, 4, 5 times a day. And
we're going to get some other questions. So, but I hope you live long enough to see these improvements.
Yeah.
Woody, you had your hand up.
Yeah, okay. Some people are asking me out there that, turn it on?
No, it's on. Speak into it.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Rucker, Lake, Stout. They all paid for them themselves. How come some of these roads are not being paid by the residents that are in front of it? Like Church Road.
Well, Rucker, I guess I'd have to check, but I think that Rucker and Lake are considered local roads.
Okay.
Where Church Road is a major thoroughfare, and I think Ferry is a major thoroughfare.
But it's still paid by residents.
Rucker Lake were special assessment districts.
Those were RIPs. Those were all RIPs.
Gravel.
Yeah, they were special assessments. Well, they're considered local roads.
Residents paid for it.
Resident initiated
Right.
projects. The residents, unless this has changed, Dale, if you had 75% of the people on a road, traditionally it was a gravel road or, some
Yeah,
unapproved road.
speak into the mic, Gary. I think what you're saying, you had a gravel road, it was converted to a paved road.
Right.
It was a local road, they paid for the original pavement.
Correct.
Period.
Yeah,
So what is the point?
The point is, how come Church Road is the same thing?
Church Road's a major thoroughfare. It's
So
a school. Well, it's a major thoroughfare, that's the answer. I can't answer so what.
No,
It
can't
goes
buy that.
through from Meridian.
Can't believe it.
Here, I think she's got something, if you don't mind.
This young lady had a question back here.
I am wondering if you've considered the complete streets guidelines in any of these reconstruction or resurfacing? Or
Yes, we have. In fact,
refurbishing?
yes, we have. In fact, we had a joint meeting in June with the Bicycle Committee. You know, there is I don't know, it's the Bicycle Pedestrian Access Committee, and we met with BPAC in this room, had a joint meeting with them. They came up with several suggestions about things we ought to consider. One was to make sure when we do East River, hopefully we'll have a little widened shoulder so that people can at least get off the marked moving lanes for vehicles. That's our plan. It's not going to be 10 foot. I mean, there's a bit of a shoulder there now. Hopefully it'll be 4 foot in our plan. But we're going to try to do as much of that as we can. When we do Church Road, we're going to make sure we fix the sidewalks as part of the road, especially at the intersections, because you don't want to, we just have to fix them, is the point. Some of them are in bad shape where they hit the curb line, and those would have to be repaired anyway. So,
just as a resident, I'm much more inclined to support something that will also provide for multiple uses by everybody in the community.
well,
So
and
why I'm asking
that's a
that
very
question.
legitimate question. We've had that bounce back and forth to us, but let's remember, this is for road improvements and for water main. It's not for pedestrian, but every place we can easily do something that will make it safer for everyone, we're going to try to do.
Well, I understand that. I'm just trying to convey the fact that I'm more supportive when I know that there are multiple uses being, provided for everyone in the community, which then is more of an asset for all of us. Along Meridian, that's not an issue because we have this wonderful bike path. So, different thing. And another question I have is, first of all, I really appreciate all the thought and work that's been put into this. Very well laid out. Thank you for doing that. I'm wondering if you've given any thought to segmenting the requests. You have different projects here, in as much as some people may not feel they could support the whole thing financially. Is there any option for voting for certain?
No.
Okay.
We have not considered that.
Okay.
This is our plan. This is what's on the ballot. It's too late to do that.
Can I ask one more question? And this is not about this project. On Macomb Street, we did pay for the repaving of Macomb several years ago, and there's a patch near the eastern part of Macomb Street on the north half that's an asphalt or bituminous patch, and I'm wondering if that's going to be resurfaced to match the rest of the street.
That's a question for, I'm not aware of the patch you're talking about.
It's not a real great patch.
Yeah, the Macomb Street was a DDA redo project, and that asphalt is a patch because there was a utility repair. So that will be, the asphalt in the middle of the concrete will be replaced with concrete.
I also like to thank you for the good work that the township has done in trying to keep our infrastructure sound. I do have several questions, quick ones. As far as the chip seal technique, what's the lifespan of something like that?
Well, what they tell you is that we went to Monroe County, and this is where we got our information. We also did some online research. It's hard to put a lifespan on it, the chip seal itself. But Monroe County would tell you that it lasts 4 or 5 years, what they put down. They've had great luck with it. What it does do is it extends the life of the asphalt pavement below it. So if we didn't do this, if we didn't do chip seal, we'd have to do crack sealing. And to do we've concluded as a commission after going and studying this, that you're better off to put the asphalt filler over the whole cross section of the road. The other thing we've done, it costs about, I forgot to get in the cost of chip seal. The chip seal cost is about $35,000 to $40,000 a mile versus $500,000 a mile to resurface. So it's about 10% of the cost. What else we've done is when we did the projects this year, we spent about $20,000 a mile extra before we chip sealed. And if you're familiar with East River out here, there was a large section, a lot of bad spots. We went in and milled those bad spots off, where it was bump, 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 certain areas where it had failed, and dug that out 3 or 4 inches and then put asphalt in those small areas. So we spent about $20,000 a mile doing that, so our cost was about $60,000. That was recommended by the contractors that did it. And we had learned from the other agencies that that's the way to do it. Take the worst spots out. So what we've budgeted in this plan is $60,000 a mile. We've figured that we're going to go in and do some, it's not really base repairs, it's surface repairs before we chip seal. Now, the other thing I would add is if our, when you estimate a project like this, we're a little conservative with the figures. We're trying to anticipate what's construction going to be in 2017, 2018. So, we're a little on the conservative side with some contingencies built into those cost estimates. If the bids come in good, our goal is to reevaluate what we're doing and try to pave more of what we're talking about chip sealing here. Take some of the worst sections. So we'll try to extend that. And as I said, we could always go to the county, and we've been talking to our county commissioner, Mr. Palomera, about this. Go to the county, if this is approved, every year and say, oh, you got some money from the legislature, how much will you give us? Will you give us $100,000 or $500,000 or $1 million? Because we're fixing your roads. And I've already thought that I personally would take the commission down to the County Board of Commissioners and ask them. Now, Mr. Palomera supports this program. He, in fact, got the county to respond to us within 30 days when we submitted this to them in 2014. In 30 days. Mr. Palomera we've also talked about the permitting procedures. The permit procedures can be very lengthy. So what we've got it down to now, Church Road needs to go for a full-blown permit, meaning storm sewers and everything else. All these resurfacing projects, they're going to do a short-circuited permit process through the road engineering division at the county. But when we go to the permit office, it could take a long time, and I'm just going to, again, I'm not here to bash county, real experience. Everybody familiar with Westcroft Gardens? The entrance, did you notice that was repaired about, what, Gary, 4 years ago? The guardrail had caved in at the drain crossing right adjacent to the driveway at Westcroft Gardens. So we said to the county came out and fixed it. They pried it back up, but it wouldn't have held a car. And that drain that's underneath, that goes alongside Westcroft Gardens entrance, you can walk through it. I heard they used to take cattle through it to the river to drink. So it's a big box culvert. So what we did is we came up with a project to go fix it with our drain monies. And we extended the culvert 6 feet on either side of the road, new guardrails. We raised the road. It used to really dip down. We raised it at the lowest point, almost a foot of new pavement. And that was about a 250-foot segment of road that was repaired. Well, we decided, let's put the water main in that section too, so we didn't want to come back and have to put the water main in. We applied for the permits through the county, and we were delayed 1 year. We wanted to pave it, I don't remember the years right now, but they held the permit review for 7 months. And when we finally got their requirements back, it would have added $150,000 to our $250,000 project. So we actually got Mr. Palomera involved again and got them to back off these requirements that they were trying to make, because we did a beautiful fix there, but that's what we're up against. So I've already talked to Mr. Palomera that if this is approved, we're going to have a meeting right away in November with the county staff and talk about getting these projects, how quickly can we get the plans done and permits into them. Because to get the best price, we want to bid it next March.
Okay, is it fair to say then if there is any available federal money or state money that the projects will just be expanded and there's no attempt to lower the millage?
Well, we've already been told we're not going to be eligible for the federal money.
Okay.
Because of the county's needs list. Remember I was saying we were 70th, now we're in the 80th percentile for the one project that was on the list. East River and West River are not on their list. West River will never be on it because it won't qualify. But as soon as you resurface a road, you have to meet the federal specifications. West River, and if anybody's watching from West River, we have a right-of-way problem there. What road is there is the right-of-way. I mean, there is no right-of-way beyond the existing road, is what I've been told over the years. So our plan for West River is to resurface it in place. It doesn't meet any county specs to do that, except the pavement will meet the county specs. They've nodded their head yes, because it's better to do that than leave it the way it is. And originally we didn't have West River on there because it's a very low traffic volume. But as we looked at it, we thought, how can we have this lengthy long-term plan and ignore West River. We just can't do that. So we added West River to it.
Right. Split the existing asphalt out like they did in
This-
Jefferson.
Yes, that's what we're going to do. That's what this gentleman was at.
Put it on top of what's there now, it's going to be like a dome.
That's right. We mill it off. But you're still asking.
Yeah, one last question. I noticed my house is on one of the areas where the main is going to be replaced, the old 3-inch main with a 6-inch main. Is that going to have any effect on the homeowners? Are they going to have to do anything special because of the change in the main size?
Well, we're going to reconnect your service line. I don't.
Okay, so there would
At
be.
this point, I'm not aware of anything. At this point, now I don't want anything to bite me in the someplace in the future. I don't know your situation,
Okay.
but generally no.
Thank you.
Generally yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, Gary.
Anyone else over here?
Gary had his hand up.
Somebody else.
All right, we'll go to you.
I live on West River, and we have significant drainage issues. And I'm happy to report we're getting a new water main because I can't tell you how many times that's failed in the last 2 or 3 years, and we definitely need that. But the other issue that I have is storm drainage, and it's going to be resurfaced. And I noted that you mentioned on Church Road that they're going to get new storm drainage. What about on these other areas where we have storm drainage problems?
Yeah, that's a great question for West River Road. I don't know your situation, but one of the things we're going to try to do with West River is try to do two things with the drainage. The problem is getting from the east side of West River to Trenton Channel, right? Right. And the water accumulates on the east side, it's trapped, and it causes a problem. So when we design the road, we've already talked to our engineers about concepts here. We're going to try to, where we can, sheet flow it across the top. In other words, build the bank up on the east side so that it's high enough so that the normal runoff will run across the road. That's one thing. The other thing, there's some spots where you can't do that. So where those spots are so low you can't do that because of driveway problems, embankment problems, we're going to try to run small tubing underneath the road and catch with a little catch basin and catch it, and again, drain it under the road so it heads towards the Trenton Channel. In addition to the road improvements, we have a drain fund, and for West River, we have a budget from our drain fund of $400,000 to try to do drainage work along West River. Now, originally, we had $2.5 million programmed for West River Road. We've now got it down to $1.8 million because when the county said they're not going to come up with money, we had to cut back. So hopefully we're going to do what we can. Okay? Tom.
Bill, thank you. Bill, thank you again, you and the DPS Commission. I'm aware of the hard work you've put into this and the amount of time that you've invested. But, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but is there a sense of urgency, should this millage not be passed in the coming year, that costs will dramatically affect us if we put it off a year or 2 years down the road, and then if and when the millage has been approved and the project starts, is this going to be a single contractor, or in other words, it'll be bid one time?
No.
Okay. Every segment of the project will be bid independently, right, as it's engineered and comes up.
Yes, I'll answer the second part first. My anticipation is we'd bid every job separately, Meridian, East River, and every year the two jobs we're doing for roads are different. So we would bid, for example, the first year we'd bid Meridian resurfacing, one set of bids, and then the Church Road is a separate set. They'd all be bid every year. And again, you want to bid them in the spring. The other thing is, as you mentioned, Tom, about the long term. Well, Donald Trump wouldn't go there, neither am I, neither Gary Bailey. I wouldn't say there's a sense of urgency at all. The issue, my personal feeling, after dealing with this, the DPS commission, people ask me, what do you do? I said, well, we're involved in garbage removal, drains, gutters, sewers, sewage plant, roads, and all the good stuff on the island. And this is good stuff. I mean, this is visible stuff. Someday the legislature is going to pass some money that's going to come into the state coffers. And a good example is what happened last year when the Interstate 96 in Livonia for 7 miles was under reconstruction. You remember that? There was a concrete shortage. There was also a trucking shortage. So all the trucking companies from Monroe to Flint were tied up hauling the broken concrete off of the freeway. And so Dan's Excavating had that job, and everybody's jobs increased dramatically in price. So if the realistic thing is, if the state were to get $1 billion, or let's say they were going to say $600 million, they only spend about $500 million a year right now. If you were to double that, there aren't enough contractors to bid it right now. I mean, statewide.
And that's where I was leading, is that a matter of supply and demand, fewer contractors, more jobs, materials.
It's only speculation, but costs are going up for concrete, costs are going up for asphalt. So I don't know that it's a sense of urgency. Costs are going to go up as we would normally expect them to. If the voters don't like this proposal or this plan, then we'll just have to reconsider what to do. The personal feeling I have, and maybe Phil would want to speak to this, he's the commissioner that's here, but we've concluded that we're not going to get help from the county, and that these are our roads. Now, we all know what they look like, and we all know what the safety conditions. I know that on East River and on West River, you can't take a bicycle or go for a safe walk in the dark because you're going to go into a hole and break something. So that's a concern. The other thing it's going to affect eventually is our property values. So you drive over here on the island, and we fixed up the Parkway from the bridge to Meridian. And we used to have 22 accidents a year. Remember how close the turning movement was at the bridge? I think we've had 1 injury accident now in the number of years that's been repaired. So that improvement has made the island look nice, that section of it at least. So when you make improvements, you have benefit from that. And we thought we had a duty to at least go to the voters. We know it's costly. I mean, do you want to fix these roads? Do you want to have the conditions be nice on this island? We concluded nobody's going to fix them for us. We're asking the question. Does that answer your question? Gary.
Yeah, before I get too far along here, I've known Bill for a few years, and by reputation longer than that. And he's been in this game a long time. And they don't name a building after you if you've been screwing up. So, anything I say is not meant to be derogatory towards Bill. First question, your proposed road improvements map, some of these roads are already fixed.
Which one?
Well, you chip sealed East River and Grill, and you're showing it as proposed. So I assume you're not going to redo that.
Well, Gary, our plan would be is we would do those sections again.
Again?
Well, we're maybe not next year, but we might do some of the chip seal in 2017 or 18. But if they hold up good, the other thing I want to say is if the bids come in good, we might chip seal roads that aren't shown on there. But we didn't want to promise and then not deliver.
Okay, fair enough. And which leads me to another one of my points. If the bids come in bad, I assume the roads at the end, your last contract will be the one that takes the hit on that?
Well, I haven't thought about the bids coming in bad.
Based on my experience, it would behoove you to consider that.
Yeah, we've at this point, at least based on construction costs, not just our engineers have experienced, but other firms have experienced. We put some safe figures in for now in contingency, and hopefully our estimates are good, Gary. I don't know what we're going to do if the bids come in bad. We can rebid, of course. That's why it's critical to me. I know the difference, and you do too, having worked as an engineer, for bidding it in March versus bidding it in May. You know that.
And I think bituminous costs are actually dropping with the price of oil dropping.
That's
but
probably true.
But not significantly, so, I mean, don't get your hopes up. Now, on the water mains, you say here that 95%, you're replacing 6-inch cast with 12-inch ductile. And then I just heard, was that Tony over there that said he has a 3-inch main?
No, I'm sorry, I meant 6. I got a 6.
Oh, okay, all right. But you're going to I assume the pressure coming to the island is not going to change?
The pressures, no. Basically, what we've learned is for normal drinking or household consumption, the pressures are fine. We just replaced the pressure reducing valve coming across the pay bridge. But where they're not fine is for fire flow. So the tests that were done in 2010 would show that there's pressure problems on those segments, East and West River. And Duncan Murdoch, the fire chief, came in 2 years ago to our commission and asked that we consider fixing those. And
I can see where the flow is going to improve by going to 12-inch. But if you're going from a 6-inch pipe to a 12-inch pipe, and your introductory pressure is the same.
Well, there's 12-inch on either side of these segments of road, water main. In other words, there's 12-inch main. These are the missing links.
So you got a 12-inch, then you've reduced down, and when you eliminate the reducer on each end, you're going to eliminate that C factor, and that's how you're going to increase the pressure then.
You're talking engineering language right now.
Well, I mean, if you just go from 6-inch to 12-inch and you have the same volume of flow, you got to lose pressure, not gain pressure.
You'll have more volume.
So
you'll have more volume.
So right now on both East and West River, you have 12-inch main either side of the segments, the 2-mile segments we're proposing.
Yeah, I mean, you say you're going to improve pressure, and I guess I'm not.
Well, for fire flow purposes, I'd be glad to let you take a look at the water reliability study.
Certainly the flow is going to improve, and, I think that's the critical issue.
What's that, Phil?
They were mostly looking at the CFM flow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
All right. You mentioned on Church Road, where it's going to be totally reconstructed, the water main then is in the right-of-way?
Gary, I don't know where the water main is, but we're going to replace it because
I
don't know if it's under the road or not. Oh, it's in the right. I've been told it's in the right of way.
In the right of way,
yes.
Yeah. I mean, you said you're going to save the tree, so the assumption is the water main has to be under the pavement.
We're going to bore some of it, I think. So we're going to
bore that.
We do everything we can to save everything.
Oh, well, we tried that on Macomb Street too, I believe, and I think we saved most of them, but that was fortuitous. And what was the other issue? Oh, on West River, have you specifically said right away, and when the road committee, which is many years ago,
right,
when we looked at that, I didn't even think, maybe Jack remembers, that we even had right away. I thought part of West River was just built on an easement.
Well, I don't know what I said. Well, you're trying to trap me about the word right away. Yes, you are. And I said we're going to pave it in place because ever since your committee was in place, and all the years I've served, I've been told there's no right of way beyond the existing pavement. That several property owners have argued, and not in my experience, but before that. Gary, I'm going to answer your question. That people have said they wouldn't give easements or additional right of way. So we don't have a cause to fight that battle. We can't even afford to buy right away. So the plan is, as I said, we wrestled with West River. Do we ignore it or try to go in and resurface it to make it safer? And we came to the conclusion that we're not going to put a program forward to fix our major roads and leave that unpaved in the existing right-of-way. We went to the county and said, will you agree conceptually to allow us to resurface what's there in place? They nodded. They said yes, they would. Now, we still got to go get the permits from them, you know that.
Yeah, and that's why I would...
It's a legitimate question. I wanted to be clear on that, though.
No, and that's why I'm curious about whether, because that was the issue 15 years ago.
And Mr. Chairman, I can speak to that a little more directly. When we did West River Road South, we had a handful of encroachments that actually Mr. Delphi went knocking on doors and working with the residents for construction easements. And after West River Road South was completed, everyone said, what a great concept, let's do West River Road North. And we did an alignment study, and there were 76 encroachments onto private property in order to do the construction according to what Wayne County required us to do, which was just like West River Road South. So as Chairman Kostick stated, Wayne County has agreed to pave in place, and the right-of-way is there, but there are a couple property owners that say, no, you don't have right-of-way, you have easement. So it's the county's position that as long as they stay within that area, then they're going to do the work and allow us to do the work. So I hope that clarifies that.
And that's all I was getting at. I didn't want, I hope we investigated this fully. So
Yes.
we didn't get
Yes.
to point A, and then the easement issue jumps up, and you've got 50 yards of unpaved work.
Yeah, and one resident in particular I have spoke directly to, and they are comfortable with this plan.
Gary, I have not investigated that issue, the easement versus right-of-way.
Yeah.
But in reality, we'll just pave it anyway at night. And no. Just from a historical perspective, obviously the road situation's been going on a long time, and you know more about it. And Jack, I was told that in the 70s that the township voted to approve 1 3/4 mils for road improvements. Do you recall that, Jack? Well, Gary? Well, remember, we had a millage in place of 1.75, 1 3/4 mils, until the year 2004. In 2004, there was a fund balance of about $4 million, and the township board said, what I was told, because I wasn't around then, what I've heard is that $4 million should be able to carry us for a while, so they let it drop off the millage. They didn't levy it again, and so they just left it off because there was no time limit on it, and we were without any new revenue coming in. Now, I got involved then, and it took us a few years to spend that money fixing roads, and one of the big projects was coming off the bridge, where were you living here when we redid that? Okay. So the cutoff to make the turn was right at the bridge, both directions, on and off of West River. And we had, as I say, 21 to 22 accidents a year there. Half of them were injury accidents. And so what we've changed with the light and all that made it a lot safer. But historically, we did have that kind of money. And if we'd have had that kind of revenue come in every year, we'd have been able to do some of these repaving projects. We just don't have it, like most communities don't have it. And I guess that's a good question on West River. Jack, you've been around a long time. You have anything you want to say?
No, I think you've come up with a great plan, and I certainly hope to pass.
Thank you.
Gentleman in the middle. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Am I on?
Yes.
Okay. I want to get some things straight in my own mind. You have done a wonderful job, and I'm very happy with it. However, if I understand it correctly, the chip seal lasts, according to Monroe's experience, 3 or 4 or 5 years. Is that correct?
Well, they re-chip seal the roads, but the point of the chip seal is if you don't do anything to your road, the asphalt's going to deteriorate quicker.
I understand.
By chip sealing, you're spreading this asphalt emulsion. It'll save the life of
5 years.
And they haven't been able to give us, I mean, how long does it save? What we thought about with this, what we were told by all the other road agencies, we have low speeds on the island, we have low traffic volumes, we don't have a lot of heavy truck traffic that's going fast, so chances are it should last a long time. Now, I will say this before Woody asks the question. When the contractor did our chip seal this year, he did South Point, Grow, and East River, and the section by the middle school of East River in 1 week. He did it 1 week. It was about 10 days later he came in and did Horsemill. There's a bit of a difference. These roads are getting better. It's smoother as the weeks go by. Horse Mill, I don't know what happened there, so we're going to have it evaluated in the spring. But I've seen roads, I was in Midland County last year, and I saw a 5-lane road that had been chip sealed, and that's all they'd ever done to it over the years, and it was, well, I was going to say it was better than Jefferson. Anything's better than Jefferson. It was in very, very good shape. You wouldn't have known it was chip sealed. We don't have any other alternatives. I mean, chip sealing is 10% of the cost of repaving. If we had the money, I mean, if we needed to repave everything, we'd be asking you for $30 million.
I was not quite going in that direction.
Okay.
If I understand it correctly, between now, whenever we repave, will not last the length of the bond payoff.
No,
Is
but
that a fair statement?
That's fair, but what?
Fine. Well, one more point, please.
Okay.
In the meantime, we have taken the county, our urgency level is going to go sky high because we have repaired our own roads. Is that correct? So, looking down the road, this situation is going to arise again.
Okay, so
we're going to need to repave. The county's not going to be willing or able to pay, and we will be going to our own pocketbooks again. Is that correct? Is that the way you look at it?
Well, yes, someday we're going to have to deal with that. But there's two issues though. On the resurfacing, you can expect given our traffic volumes that the resurfacing and Church Road, of course, they're going to last 20 plus years. They repaved these roads in the 70s, so what's that? That's been 40 years ago. And of course, some of them are bad. Now, on the chip sealing, I understand what your concern is. Remember what I said? We have $100,000 a year of the other revenue that we do roads. If a section of road starts to deteriorate, we could always go out and spend $30,000, $40,000 chip sealing that road again, whether it's 2024 or 2025.
The second pass is easier.
Well, I can't. It's the same procedure. It's not. I don't know that it's any easier, but it's a separate. But it builds up, and it.
And you shouldn't have to make the subterranean repairs.
Well, that's right. And Gary mentioned we shouldn't have to do the sub-base repairs. So, you know, Monroe County was once willing to come in to do a mile for us on a trial basis, and they got rained off. That's 3 years ago. They had so much rain they couldn't get here, but they were going to just charge us $25,000 for. They were going to do ferry, and they set that up. But then in 2013, with that cold winter, ferry broke up so bad that there was big chunks missing out of the road. We couldn't do it. We decided not to do it.
I have another question, please.
He had his hand up. Let me go to him. Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a real ideological problem with relieving the county of their burden to maintain our roads. I pay the county taxes, I pay taxes at the gas pump, and now you're asking me to pay township taxes to maintain the roads. I think there should be political avenues pursued to get us moved up that list. I agree with the gentleman that if we repair our own roads, if we're in the 80th percentile now, we're going to be in the 110th percentile later down the road, and we're not going to ever get it done. This will perpetuate itself. The second thing, and I hesitate to use the word disingenuous, but all of the communities that have been cited as having passed road millages, and there may be others, are cities, not townships. Cities do have their own streets that they're responsible for, their own roads that they have to maintain. And I really haven't done an in-depth study, but I would be very surprised if these cities are using those millages to repair roads that are not their responsibilities.
Well, surprise. I was city manager of Farmington Hills for 17 years, and we fixed county roads because they weren't going to do it. 12-mile road boulevard, go look at it. 4 miles, 12-mile road boulevard. The city went and got the grants and put up our money to fix it because the county was on their list and they got to it maybe by now. Southfield, I know for a fact, is doing some roads that are county roads, because they're so frustrated they're not on the county list. This political thing you talk about, and I agree with you 100%. The unfortunate thing is the federal aid committee in each county, in each urban county, and you know this, Gary, the federal aid committee is composed of representatives of all the cities, villages, and the townships have some people there, but the county votes because they're their roads. This federal aid committee, they approve the needs list every year. So in Wayne County, you have the public works director or mayor, representative from Livonia, sitting on the committee with somebody from Romulus and all the other cities, Grosse Pointes and so forth. They have criteria set up based on accidents, traffic volumes, congestion, and road conditions. That's how they rate the roads. I mean, it'd be nice if we could argue the list. I'm just trying to give you some background information on. And again, I'm not asking you for a yes vote. I would hope people would consider this, but we wanted to get this in front of people. We felt we should put something out there.
One other thing, I wish that there had been a separation between the water mains and the roads, because they are truly two separate issues. The roads are not our responsibilities, whereas the water mains are.
Appreciate your sentiments.
I want to ask you something that I don't think has been addressed. I haven't heard of it that has been addressed tonight here. And that's in regard to the ditches. I call them a ditch. We don't have sanitary sewers in a lot of the island, most of the island probably. I'm not sure.
Yes, we do.
We have those ditches. We have sanitary sewers about...
We have storm drains, ditches, yes.
Ditches, they're just a dirt ditch.
Right.
I break my neck every week cutting the grass in there.
Yep.
And 100, we have this pipe underneath the driveway. The water is supposedly supposed to go from one side to the other. 101% inoperable everywhere. There is no way the water can get through those driveway from one driveway to another driveway.
The culverts are plugged.
Whose responsibility is it to maintain those pipes that they're open underneath the driveway of people?
Yeah.
That is a Wayne County maintenance item, and that is something that we can get them to participate on. Although they have the equipment, the short staff, but that's the type of thing, the pothole repairs, the jetting, they will be responsive to us, but slow. But
on Ferry, because we cut back the program, we're not gonna do any improvements in the ditches.
No, the road is going to be fine, but those ditches are a disaster because they get full of water. They get full of water up to the road level when it rains a lot.
We have flooding all over the island in different spots.
The water can't go anywhere.
Right.
I'll note that with the...
Okay. All right, so are there other questions?
Yes. I noticed the map here for the proposed water system improvements does not include a timeline like the road one did. So my basic assumption would be that when the road that overlays with it, that's when the water main would get fixed. However, there are
in advance of it, just slightly
in advance of it.
In advance of it.
However, there are parts of the water main that are not. Don't line up. Specifically, it looks like Bridge Road and down on Hickory Island. What's the timing on those?
Well, some of them we don't have a timeline on because one of the issues is we don't want to tear up the whole island at the same time. So we tried to, as we contemplated this and we tried to stage things, we did look at what are we going to tear up for roads and water main. And are we going to cause congestion? If you look at it, I think it's pretty well laid out. So we're not tearing the whole thing up at one time. So as far as the water mains on the very north end, they're independent of the chip seal process and everything. The Hickory Island is unaffected by it. We could do it any time, really. My thought is we put those off till the end so that there's a period of time that we're not paying for those yet. The people on Hickory Island asked for water main upgrades to us this past year, about a year ago, and understood that we were working on something and it might take a couple of years. I don't know if that's the best I can give you an answer.
Fair enough.
First off, I wanted to thank you for posting the video on the township webpage, kind of addressing this. I got a chance to watch that and answered a lot of my questions starting out. The one thing I had a question about was the chip and seal. You had mentioned that needs to be laid within a certain temperature range. Right. And my question is we know that horse mill was done. Any idea what went wrong possibly with that chip and seal? It seems... Was that laid at the wrong temperature? Was it?
No, I don't think so, but I don't know whether the materials were right. I mean, it just doesn't drive the same as the other section. It's got a little more of a vibration to it. And I said, when I drive East River, and I took my grandson to middle school today, I said, you know, this section of East River is driving smoother every time I drive it. And I don't know what happened on Horse Mill, but what we're going to do in the spring is have the contractor come out, regardless of what happens with this, and evaluate that for us. Now, one of the contractors said there's some new, they call it a fog seal, and I don't have the details on it yet. One of the contractors from Grand Rapids area that didn't do our work had called and said that there's a new material he wanted to show us for the, like I would call it a fog seal, but that's probably not what they call it. And I'm just guessing that it provides a little thicker final coating. I'm not sure, Gary, what that is. So if this is approved, we're going to investigate that. So
that's
but I
used to call the wear code? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but he called me and he mentioned something, and I said, well, I'll be glad to look at it in the future. Yes, ma'am.
Well, those of us who live along the areas where you've already done chip and seal got letters asking us to keep our road speeds lowered, but that wasn't posted or enforced anywhere. So anybody who was traveling those roads who didn't get that letter didn't know, or maybe people just didn't bother to observe that. So I don't know whether that's an issue with the outcome, and I'm wondering if something will be done more consistently in the future to make sure everybody uses a lower speed during the curing process.
We could post it a little better than we did. I agree with you. We were, but I don't know if I could say I don't think so, because the reason the 25 mile was in place primarily was so that you didn't splatter the stuff up on your car.
I see. Okay, so that didn't matter. Okay.
Gary?
Yes and no. I mean, until the...
Yeah, it makes sense if you're going faster that it might disrupt it.
Yeah, until the stone's actually embedded. The first 24 hours or whatever, I don't know, pick a number, is critical to the...
24 hours is the critical period.
That's what I thought, yeah.
So maybe we have to post it better. It's a good comment.
She's taught primarily, to be quite honest about it, was the landscapers that would whip back and forth with their trucks and trailers. That's what we noticed, seriously.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. I hope that people will consider this and vote one way or the other. So thank you.